Inauguration Day, a lot of stuff going on, right? Pomp and circumstance, you might call it. What do you guys think about the fact that President Biden went ahead and pardoned Leonard Pelletier? That's it's pretty ballsy, I guess. You know, politically, probably the best chance that Leonard had to get a pardon. I mean, it should have been given out, I think, years and years ago. It just shows the power of the police lobby when they have somebody in their sights and it becomes a political issue. Yeah, it's no, you know, 40 something years. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Marsfield, how you doing? Yeah, he's got to get out there and do some interviews now. I mean, they're gonna be watching him like a hawk, though. They're gonna think that he's, you know, that the Native Americans are gonna rally behind him and all that, and reconstitute, you know, the Native American movement and all that. So he won't do that. Leonard's not really about all that. I mean, he was a young man when he went in, like I was, just a young man. And now he's old, he's 80, so, or thereabouts. Don't quote me on that, but he's up around there. Yeah, blood on the razor wire would be, you know, Chad would be, you know, he'd have to come up on his P's and Q's as far as, you know, what is now relevant to Leonard. I mean, what does he intend and all of that? And maybe not so much on the backstory, because some of that for sure. Yeah, I've watched it. I mean, I knew Leonard. I hung out with Leonard a little bit. I mean, I had one of his earliest paintings of a buffalo that's coming down through this canyon, through this ravine, like, and turning. And, you know, there's the rocks and the dust that he's kicking up in the background and everything. I mean, he's just, this buffalo, this bison is just charging out of this canyon. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, when you're in prison and you're buying these and sending them home, and people at home don't understand what they are. And so I had a whole collection of paintings that I had. They were all animal type paintings because I love animals. It's all I have tattooed on me, other than, you know, the sky, the sun, the moon, and that stuff is animals. I've always loved animals. That's my thing, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of egregious, I think, egregious thing for Biden to do that. What do you guys think? He didn't have anything to lose going out of office. He knew, or had reason to believe, that it was the right thing to do, from a, you know, just a general consensus on justice from at least Pelletier's allies. No. I mean, I'm wondering where he's at and what he's doing right now, because he might be back on the res. He might be back on the res. It's where he came from. He's certainly over that way somewhere. And yeah, he's hanging out somewhere right now and just like taking it all in and kind of tripping on the fact that, he's finally been freed after all of these many, many years. So I think that's pretty cool. I think I know he's got to be happy, and all those people that, I mean, this is way back in the 90s, early 90s, when I was at Leavenworth, and when, he had congressmen and women who were in his corner. He had all kinds of, uh, the evidence was very questionable. And anybody that knows anything about federal trials, especially in a case like that, and anybody that knows how the FBI will operate in a case like that, how they will go off to the side and go off the rails and try to make sure that they get a conviction at any cost. Money isn't anything. It's a government, so their resources that way are unlimited. But it's more like the moral. It's worth it at any moral cost. In other words, yeah, we'll lie, we'll manipulate, we'll deceive, we will rig this thing if we can, and they do that kind of thing. That's anybody that's been through any system, state, local, federal. I mean, it's very few courtrooms that you enter into where there isn't some kind of a game being played out amongst those in power that are just kind of using everybody that comes into their fiefdom as some kind of fodder or some kind of piece on a board. Walking Eagle, life sentence per second. Yeah. Yeah, I think Biden should have taken a long look at all of those and probably issued some other pardons there. Yeah, the way that it works, the law, the way that it works on the res, and with the BIA and everything involved, it's kind of a different, it's almost a different system for Native Americans. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those guys, a lot of the natives that I knew they had money. They had money coming in every month. They had these government contracts and for the land, leases on the land and stuff. A lot of them have the casinos and everything. There's the spirit of New Orleans. Man, haven't seen you or heard from you in a while. Yeah, well, isn't it already that way? Fentanyl dealers are already treated like terrorists. I mean, if you're talking about the need for general public safety, I think you probably should have some kind of a focus on the drug trade and the fentanyl so-called epidemic and so forth. I mean, how many people are losing their lives early? How many people are caught in this web, this trap? But I don't think it should be a punishment type thing at all. Punishment shouldn't even come into the equation, except if you're violating the law, if you're pushing that hard stuff and you're pushing it and people are dying, then yeah, you've got to have some responsibility there, because it's almost like spreading around poison or putting poison in some kind of a pill, like the Tylenol thing back in Chicago. I think it was back in the 70s where somebody was putting either strychnine or some kind of chemical. I forgot what it was. But medical malpractice is the same. It's all institutionalized, right? What we're doing is we are trading off this sort of a con game because there's commerce involved, because there's dollar bills, right? And we want the dollar bills because in our hearts and minds, we believe that the dollar bills will make our lives more comfortable, better, safer, more secure, more free. And so we chase those dollar bills, but we kind of forget to listen to what's coming from inside of us about, what's right and what's wrong. I think that drug trafficking, drug dealing, I think that the United States itself, the government, should manufacture the recreational drugs and license people in certain areas to distribute, to sell it in certain quantities. I think they'd come out way ahead just regulating it rather than trying to stomp it out by throwing people into a cage for the rest of their lives or for some umpteen odd years. Yeah, medical malpractice. Don't get me started on medical malpractice, man. Those people sliced me open from stem to stern just to take my guts out and lay them on a table and show some students how that whole procedure goes, put them back in. They had no consent to do that. They had no, it was crazy. That happened in Arizona back in 2015. Chandler Hospital in Arizona. No, they're not gonna, no, they can't. Police cannot just enter a home without a warrant. They shouldn't just be able to enter your home or somebody's home, anybody's home without a warrant. Now, if they see like a drug transaction taking place at the door or something like that, if they catch enough of it to, to make a valid probable cause argument, like, yeah, I was with the guy, he, put the money through the slot and out came something that looked like cocaine or whatever, they could probably go in there. But, yeah, no, I know how people, any person, anyone that you put in a position of some authority over another person in any capacity, it's just human nature. They're going to take advantage of that. Most people, 99 out of 100, are somehow going to take advantage of that, meaning that they're going to abuse their position at some time in some way. Some more than others, of course. But it's just human nature to go that way. And this is why we need a strong charter. We need to have it spelled out in a new and improved U.S. Constitution, is what I believe. But I don't think it's going to get to that for a while. But yeah, they cut me open down at Chandler Hospital in Chandler, Arizona, back in 2015. Went in there because they thought that I had swallowed a bolt or something that they couldn't find in the cell. They thought I had swallowed it, and I hadn't. But I went ahead, and I didn't have any choice. They took me to the hospital, and I signed to have an endotracheal camera put down my throat into my stomach so they could see that there was nothing there or whatever. It was just a trip to the hospital, right? Just a trip out of the joint. Day trip. And I wake up, I don't know how many hours later, and I'm in the intensive care unit, and I'm having convulsions. My whole body was shaking like a friggin' machine gun. It was like my body was trying to reject something that they had put in me, and my whole abdomen was sutured and Um, it was just, it was horrible. It was one of the most horrible nightmares I've ever had. I've had a lot of bad shit happen, but that was one of the most horrible, horrific incidents. So I know that people that are in these positions, especially when it comes to people they don't feel or think are worthy, like they classify you as being marginalized, as being really a non person in a way. That's what it happens in the mind. It all happens in the mind. Yeah, no, I mean, you have Spirit of New Orleans, you have something that makes sense. We know what works, we know what doesn't. We know that the bottom line with human beings is that we want fairness. That's what justice means. Justice, it's just another word for fairness, due process. It's just another word for fairness. We want fairness. We want fundamentally what's fair. Because one thing I realized recently, it was like an epiphany, sort of a mini epiphany, but I realized that life is fair. It really is fair. Um, everyone, nobody gets out of this without getting burned, without getting hurt, without having some serious disappointments or despair or distress. Nobody gets out of this life without having that kind of pain and suffering somewhere along the line. And think about this, none of us get out of here alive. So fundamentally, the universe is fair. It's exceptionally fair. None of us get out of this alive. So what difference does it really make? In the end, you're not taking anything with you. It's all going to stay here. It's all going to go somewhere else or somebody else's usage. You might have a little more, you might think you're having a little more fun while you're alive, but what's fun as opposed to meaningful? Like having enjoyment is like having meaningful fun, that something that penetrates your soul and helps you to grow in some way, helps you to come to a new appreciation of life or freedom or the creator or whatever. This understanding is what I think we're really after. Oh, you know what? Spirit of New Orleans, I didn't even think about that. The organs going into shock. That could very well be. That could have been what happened. I know that whatever they did, they messed up my abdomen badly. I mean, I was a fitness guru. I mean, I've always kept myself in pretty top-notch condition, through calisthenics and different types of exercise and practices. So, once your abdomen is split like that, I mean, it's going to take years off of your life. You can't breathe properly anymore. Your diaphragm's affected. Anything that you do athletically is going to be affected. Yeah, that's probably what happened right there. But I was going through, I woke up, I remember waking up, I was all doped up. And I remember waking up in intensive care. There's a guard right here by me. I'm chained down, both arms to the bed rails, and my body just starts shaking, like uncontrollable, like I'm firing a 50 caliber machine gun or something. My whole body was just shaking like that. And this nurse, this charge nurse, she was this evil, evil little bitch. They were trying to do another operation. They wanted these two students to open my wrist, to make an incision in my wrist, and to put an IV or a line into the artery, into the radial artery in my arm, at my wrist, because they said that what was it they said was getting too high? Some kind of acid in the blood, and they said that from what was going on, the shock or the rejection or whatever it was, they wanted to monitor that. They wanted to do another operation. I refused. I said, no, oh, hell no, 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 no. And I mean, this charge nurse, an Indian young girl, she was the most rude and like vicious piece of work that I had seen a long time. And believe me, I was coming from maximum security penitentiary, so it wasn't like those people weren't around everywhere. But yeah, I had to fight with her. It just led to a lot of problems. But, look, people abuse their power, no matter what that is. They abuse any kind of signal that you're not one of them, and it opens up this category of marginalized persons, and now it's open season on your ass, right? Oh, I used to do that. Yeah, you put the pack of Kool-Aid in the milk and shake it up, just let it sit. And in a couple days, it'll be like cottage cheese, that it'll be like the flavor of whatever you put in there. But yeah, if you eat too much of it, oh, Marsfield, yeah, I knew a dude like that. I knew a dude down in Springfield that he had some kind of a blockage. I think he swallowed a spoon or something. And they just took that dude to the hospital one morning. They just came and got him like 4 a.m. And when he came back, he had a colostomy bag. They went down and gave him a colostomy, whatever that procedure's called, and he had a bag on when he came back. Can you imagine? I mean, that'd be a worse nightmare than anything, is, having to shit from out the side of your stomach. I mean, fuck. Those people, they want to teach you a lesson. They want to teach us a lesson about making them do things that they shouldn't have to be doing, in their view. Like medical procedures that to them are completely unnecessary because it's self-inflicted. Well, they're not trained or taught that whether it's self-inflicted or otherwise, doesn't matter, really. It's an injury, it's an illness, it's a situation that when it calls out for medical intervention, that medical intervention can be no different than you would give to anyone else, whether they were a card-carrying member of your brigade or not. I mean, just because it's something different doesn't mean that it's open to individual interpretation, right? You have to have some kind of standards that apply across the board. So, yeah, if you're in prison Marsfield, you're in prison. I mean, you've got a rough, you're going to have a rough time trying to sue them for medical malpractice, especially where they have these prisons, the states where they generally have them. Really hard to sue private parties that are, um, in effect, working on, getting paid by the government. Snow, wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Marsfield. It's like, it's just it's basic human nature, man. It's true of everybody, right? We can try to train our minds. We can try, and it's to degrees. It's 2 degrees. Just because somebody tells a lie about something doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go out and commit first degree murder. It's not quite the equivalent. Um, and we recognize that. But one thing we don't recognize or don't really want to acknowledge is the fact that we humans are no different than any other warm-blooded mammal on the face of this earth. Biologically speaking, we have the same basic instincts. They've just been trained down a little bit by what we call civilization or the rule of law or what have you. The intent of the rule of law is supposed to be, at least in a free type of a nation, it's supposed to reflect ways that individuals can better themselves. It's supposed to reflect a course of behavior that everyone respects, basic human rights, if you will. And those should be paramount, because if you don't have that at the top, if those aren't paramount, then yeah, if you're making money or the accumulation of goods or lands or property or prestige or pride or whatever, if that's at the top, then yeah, we're not going to get very far. So a lot of that is reflected in and through the entirety of the system. But I agree also that there's a lot of overkill, there's a lot of unnecessary spending, there's a lot of unnecessary taxation, there's just a lot of garbage in the mix. But you have to expect it because we humans are the ones that are making these rules. And when you have a group of humans who have it better than others, they feel privileged in certain ways because they have money and they have prestige, they have positions, so they have power. And, that's going to affect the way you relate to other people, especially people you don't know. And you might stick to the script, you might stick to general notions of what's right and wrong. But when you get that odd person, when you get that marginalized person in the mix, that's the one you're probably going to take off on. Because all along you're wanting to, but you're not, just afraid of being checked in some way. And then when you run up on this one that you don't think is going to be able to check you or say anything or do anything, it's going to affect you, it's gloves off, right? So that's the same for medical personnel. It's the same for, we see it all the time with law enforcement, certain departments more than others. But yeah, it's really crazy what kind of money they will spend just for administrative fees. Take any of these nonprofits or any of these organizations that are helping the homeless, so to speak, or state, local, federal sponsored programs. About 80% of those monies, maybe more, is going to administrative fees, which means it's going to pay high salaries for those principals and the workers, the regular, on the ground operational day-to-day line staff is being paid really well too in most of those organizations. So, I mean, what does it come down to? It comes down to what? Leasing a building for a certain period of time, putting some porta potties in, maybe sticking up or coming in with a mobile medical station a couple times a week, to see people like on a sick call basis, hand out some aspirin, some Tylenol and stuff. Yeah, the state of California is going to get that smog money out of you one way or the other, for sure. That's just the way this thing is set up. I mean, starts out as it sounds good from a political perspective. Hey, let's cut down on the smog. How do we do that? The car manufacturers come in, probably Toyota as well, and say, okay, we'll cut down on our emissions. We'll make these hybrids and we'll make these electric vehicles that give off no emissions whatsoever. And then you get back to that political football. Joe Biden jumps on board with, hey, let's get rid of these gas guzzling motors that everybody's tearing up the earth to get to the petrol and to get this easy money. Let's kind of phase out of this and go to the next thing. But it's back and forth. Oh no, you can't make electric without using coal or some type of petrol, and which is indeed false. I mean, you can make it out of wind, which I have also noticed that the wind is picking up a lot. The wind, it's not just climate like snow and rain and heat and fires and shit like that, tornadoes and stuff, but it's the wind generally. I think that's the most problematic. As the world heats up, that wind starts going faster and faster. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. To answer your question, Violet, it doesn't make sense at all. It's a hybrid. It's got a much smaller, much more economical motor or engine to offset the EV. But I like the idea of EVs. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I like the idea of EVs. I like the bikes. I like anything really with the electric motors on it, powered up by, I think they'll come up with some new generations of batteries. I know that they were experimenting with like the ions off of sodium, and I know there's some kind of way that styrofoam will store electrical charges, because if you like take a styrofoam tray, I mean, these are the kind of things you do when you're really bored in a prison cell. But I used to take my styrofoam tray, put a little bit of sugar, or even like oatmeal or some kind of grain in the bottom of the tray, just little pieces of it, and then rub on the bottom of the tray with my fingers, and it'd make those little pieces of cereal or sugar or whatever. It would make them jump like all over the place. And then I noticed that um, it's going to sound crazy as hell. I'm going to go ahead and say it since I already started to say it. But then I noticed that with a bar of soap, that if I rub the soap like you're rubbing a lamp, a genie's bottle or something, and drop it into water, like into, I used to plug the bottom of the shower so that I could get a little bit of water in there, so I could take a bath, a little bird bath or whatever sometimes. But I rubbed this soap and somehow it got an electrical charge. And when I dropped it in the water, I can't remember if it was accidentally on purpose, but it just scooted like right straight across. Almost, it was so fast I couldn't even believe. And it was underwater. And it wasn't like it hit the bottom and, just came out in a little dive, like boom. No. The minute it hit the water, it just whoosh, and right up on the other side by the wall. So I don't know. I think there's other substances and materials that will hold electrical charges. Mycelium networks paved the way for Japanese subway. More better and more efficient. Mycelium networks. I don't know what that is, Marsfield. I'm going to have to look that up. And I don't know about the e-bikes in California. I know that every city and town is trying to make some kind of ordinances now because a lot of people have them. And oh yeah, well, yeah, yeah. I guess that would pave the way. If you're in a certain state of mind, you're gonna start getting certain thoughts and ideas, kind of like Nikola Tesla or somebody, Edison, some genius inventor, right? But yeah, you gotta you gotta be in a certain spot. Maybe I was thinking you were talking about more or less making a tea out of them and drinking it, and then, just letting yourself zone into higher levels of reality, and then picking up that information and bringing it back with you to normal life or whatever. But yeah, I'm just hanging around here, just working on several projects right now. We're still working on the documentary. We send out books to prisoners in California. Still have the manual program going. We have the cage program, which I'm still developing. That's kind of a little bit of a theatrical and musical message about the overuse of confinement and, what it means to the human spirit and the human psyche generally. It just kind of tells my story in a way, symbolic way, I guess, and a personal way too. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump because we're right at 40 minutes now. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate you showing up, man, and hopefully we'll get a chance to get together again here in the near future. A lot of shit is going to go down now. A lot of stuff. You'll hear it all on the news in the next week or two. They're going to be making some moves. So there's going to be things happening. But we'll talk about it all. And you guys just be careful, be safe above all. Use your heads, be smart. Try to avoid unnecessary incidents or involvements that are going to get you caught up or take away from your peace of mind. Some things we need, some challenges, we need, and if they're there, look at them as challenges. Go ahead and find ways to rise to the occasion, to overcome, to look for the benefits, the opportunities that are in each circumstance. But yeah, have a good one. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks. Appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you again very soon.